In May 2023, Warner Bros. Was celebrating the largest launch in the history of its gaming division. Hogwarts Legacy had already generated more than $1 billion in retail sales. Less than 2 years later, Warner Bros. Announced the closure of 3 game studios. Between those moments, Suicide Squad became a major financial disappointment, MultiVersus lost its online service, and Monolith's announced Wonder Woman game was cancelled. Yet Warner Bros. Still controlled Harry Potter, Batman, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and decades of development experience. So how did a company with this many advantages lose control of its gaming empire? Warner Bros. Games was not built around one studio or one type of player. Rocksteady had turned Batman into one of gaming's most respected action series. NetherRealm had made Mortal Kombat a dependable blockbuster. TT Games had built an enormous family audience. Monolith had created Blood, Fear, Condemned, and the Middle-earth Shadow games. Its Nemesis system allowed enemies to remember encounters and develop histories of the player. Warner Bros. Once celebrated the technology as an advance in personalized player-driven storytelling. Then Hogwarts Legacy showed what this collection of studios and properties could produce when the correct game found its audience. The game was a premium, primarily single-player experience. Its success did not prove that every Warner Bros. Release needed to be the same structure, but Warner Bros. Was also pursuing a different kind of success, one designed to continue long after launch. By late 2023, Warner Bros. Executives were publicly describing plans to expand major properties through live services, free-to-play releases, and more persistent forms of engagement. The goal was not only to sell games, but to keep players inside those games and generate recurring activity after release. Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League was not created because Warner Bros. Saw Hogwarts Legacy's success and suddenly changed directions. Rocksteady's project has been announced in 2020 as an online cooperative shooter, but it placed a studio known for carefully designed single-player Batman games inside a completely different challenge. Create 4-player combat, repeatable missions, equipment progression, cosmetic purchases, and seasonal content capable of retaining an audience. At launch, Warner Bros. Promised free post-launch seasons with new characters, missions, equipment, and events. The game did not merely need a strong opening, it needed players to keep returning. When Suicide Squad arrived in February 2024, reviews criticized its repetitive structure, equipment systems, and live service design. Warner Bros. Soon confirmed that the release had produced significantly lower revenue than Hogwarts Legacy in its comparable quarter. On May 9, 2024, Warner Bros. Discovery Chief Financial Officer connected the disappointing performance and impairment of the game to an approximately $200 million impact on first quarter adjusted EBITDA. That was not the game's confirmed development budget, its exact total loss, or a simple statement of cash spent. It was the company's reported impact on a non-GAAP profitability measure during that quarter. The financial result was only one part of the damage, though. In a July 2026 text interview reported by Bloomberg, former Rocksteady game director and former associate design director, they described their own experiences during the project. They said discussions increasingly focused on audience reach, replayability, retention, and monetization. They also described feeling as though they were following an unclear marketing analysis spreadsheet. That was their account of their own experience. It did not prove that every production problem was directly ordered by Warner Bros. Executives. Their accounts revealed the tension between creative development and the pressure to make a prolonged, expensive project sustain an audience. They do not reduce the failure to one cause. Reporting also identified shifting direction, management difficulties, and Rocksteady's difficult transition into live service production. The game's final seasonal episode arrived on January 14th, 2025, less than 1 year after launch. But Suicide Squad itself was not shut down. Its online features remained available, and an offline mode allowed access to the campaign and released seasonal content. Warner Bros. Could still describe it as only one failed project, but MultiVersus made that explanation harder to maintain. MultiVersus combined Batman, Superman, Bugs Bunny, Shaggy, Arya Stark, and other Warner Bros. Characters inside a free-to-play platform fighter. Its original beta had already demonstrated substantial interest before Warner Bros. Removed the game for redevelopment. It relaunched on May 28, 2024. Then, on July 22nd, Warner Bros. Acquired developer Player First Games. We have worked with Player First Games over several years to create and launch MultiVersus, and we are very pleased to welcome this talented team to Warner Bros. Games. That statement came from Warner Bros. Games president David Haddad in a written acquisition announcement. Player First Games would report through Warner Bros. Games San Diego, which proved production support and live management. On January 31st, 2025, Warner Bros. Announced that the coming 5th season would be the last. On February 25th, it announced plans to close Player First Games, Warner Bros. Games San Diego, and Monolith Productions. Then, on May 30th, online services for MultiVersus ended, and the game was removed from digital storefronts. A second attempt to create a continuing platform had ended, and the company had eliminated both the developer it acquired and the support studio attached to the project. In January 2025, David Haddad announced that he would leave Warner Bros. Games after approximately 12 years as its president. Warner Bros. Said he had chosen a lighter point in the release schedule to minimize disruption. There is no public basis to describe his departure as a firing. The clearer corporate explanation came later. During Warner Bros. Discovery's February 26, 2026 earnings calls, global streaming and games chief J.B. Perrette described the previous year as a reset. Perrette also said Warner Bros. Had operated with too broad of a set of studios, and that the new direction centered on proven studios, games, and audiences. Warner Bros. Narrowed its development priorities around Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, DC, and Game of Thrones. This was a confirmed company decision. It does not mean every game failed for the same reason, or that one executive decision caused everything that followed. A narrower strategy still required Warner Bros. To decide which projects and teams would remain. Monolith Productions has existed since 1994. Over 3 decades, it developed acclaimed shooters, horror games, and the Middle-earth Shadow series. Warner Bros. Had publicly praised the studio's history and its Nemesis system. In December 2021, Warner Bros. Announced that Monolith was creating a single-player, open-world Wonder Woman game using that exact system. For years, its short announcement teaser was almost all the public received. On February 25th, 2025, Warner Bros. Announced that Wonder Woman was cancelled and that it would close Monolith, Player First Games, and Warner Bros. Games San Diego. The announcement did not establish the precise legal or operational completion data for each closure, and the company did not publicly disclose the total number of affected employees. Reporting later described production problems surrounding Wonder Woman, including a reboot, leadership changes, and major costs. Those details came from reporting based on unnamed sources, not from Warner Bros. Official statements. Warner Bros. Own explanation was that it had changed its strategic priorities. The company said the closures were not a reflection of the teams or their talent, and that it wanted to return its games business to profitability and growth. Monolith's closure ended a studio with roughly 3 decades of accumulated experience. Player First Games disappeared months after Warner Bros. Had welcomed it into the company. San Diego's closure removed that team that has supported the publisher's free-to-play ambitions. The visible loss was a cancelled Wonder Woman game. The deeper loss was institutional knowledge developers, systems, and working relationships that could not be recreated simply by approving another project. Warner Bros. Had finally reduced the scope of its gaming operation, but the reduction was measured in more than cancelled release dates. Warner Bros. Games survived. Its remaining studios continued operating, and TT Games released LEGO Batman: Legacy of the Dark Knight in May 2026. But the company did not present the reset as an immediate recovery. Perrette said 2026 would resemble the limited pipelines of 2025 because Warner Bros. Had not yet replenished its state. Warner Bros. Retained the worlds that has made its gaming business valuable. What it lost was time, unfinished projects, and institutional knowledge built across studios that no longer existed. The lesson is not that every live service game fails, or that every Warner Bros. Release should imitate Hogwarts Legacy. Suicide Squad, MultiVersus, and Wonder Woman faced different immediate problems, but they unfolded inside a portfolio Warner Bros. Later acknowledged had become too broad. Famous properties could create attention, but they could not compensate for unstable development, weak retention, or a strategy spread beyond the company's ability to execute consistently. By the time Warner Bros. Narrowed its ambitions, the reset was no longer only about which games it would make. It was about deciding which studios would still exist to make them.